Hello, I'm Christine Franklyn, and I help busy people who want to feel more free and alive and vibrant. And this is an important part of my work as a health coach. And I'm so happy to have another health coach here to chat with me today.
Hiya, I'm Silvana Siskov. I'm a health coach, a nutritionist, counselor, and I wrote numbers of books on weight loss, health, and well-being. And today we are going to talk about how to live longer. And I wrote the book "Get Your Sparkle Back," which is here, and it's about emotional eating. And in this book, I mentioned blue zones. And I just want to talk a little bit about blue zones, what they are, because I'm aware that some people are not familiar with it. So blue zones are 5 areas in the world where people live the longest and the healthiest. And those 5 places are in Italy, Sardinia in Italy. Another place is in Japan, another place in Loma Linda in California, another place in Costa Rica, and another place, one of the Greek islands. And Christina, before we started recording this, you mentioned Barbados should be on the
Yes,
list too.
yes, I think so. It's not officially a blue zone because I think what happens here is not well documented, but really we have one of the highest numbers of centenarians per kilometer, and it's right up there close to Japan's rate. And not only are people living long, living to 100 years or beyond, we've had people living to 111 and so on, but they're also healthy. They generally have no major health issues, and they're always on TV for their 100th birthday, and you can hear them speaking strongly. And you think, if I'm going to live to 100, that's how I want to be. So we'll
Yeah.
talk about what can help us actually get there.
Yeah, and there are 9 lessons that we can all benefit from blue zones. And one of them is move naturally. And that's very common for all of them, for all these 5 blue zones, because people over there, they don't tend to go to the gym. They just move naturally. They do gardening, they do housework, they don't use the car as often, they walk every day. And I presume in Barbados, it's very kind of similar type of lifestyle.
Yes, I'm the first person in my family to drive a car. So my,
Right.
my father had a motorcycle, but that was mainly for work when he was doing messenger work. But really, literally, everyone has been used to taking the bus or walking. I used to walk to school every day, and that
Yeah.
was normal. You went to a school, at least for primary school, for sure. You went to a school that was nearby. And
Yeah.
so that has been typically the lifestyle in traditional Barbados. Of course, that's changing now. A lot more people have cars and they hop in their car to go everywhere, even if it's just down the street. But traditionally, and many people still take the bus as well here, but traditionally, people used to walk really long distances. I mean, the same people who are living to 100 now, they used to walk 3 miles a day to go to work and 3 miles back.
Wow. Yeah. That's
And
good.
yeah, and that was just normal.
So
And
when you do that, you don't really need to go to the gym.
yeah, of course not. There was
Yeah.
no such
Yeah.
thing as gyms. In
Yeah.
Barbados,
Yeah.
gyms
Yeah.
are a very recent occurrence.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
such thing as a gym before, hardly. So, it's the new thing, it's the new fad, but and it's good for people who want to make sure
Mm,
they get regular exercise because our
yeah.
lifestyle is just not what it used to be then. So if you're going to be driving a car every day, definitely, go to the gym if that works for you.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, traditionally, people just used to walk wherever they needed to go.
And yeah, I mean, moving naturally is it's very easy. It's
Yes.
something that's very easy to do, something we can do any day, anytime. As I mentioned before in our talks, I often work with clients who want to lose weight, and we often look at how they can move naturally, how they can increase their daily steps count. And I offer I kind of I mention often a few things. Kind of one of them is when you speak on the phone, don't sit down, just walk around the room. When you wait for the kettle to boil, when you're making your tea, just to walk around the kitchen, do some press ups, do something, do some type of exercise. When you go to work, if you are using a bus, just to get off the station before, or if you're using the train, or even if you drive, just to park the car half a mile away from the work and then walk this half a mile instead of using the lift. Use the stairs. When you do shopping, food shopping, don't use a trolley, use a basket. So those are kind of all kind of things that we can just implement in everyday life. And the thing is that when we start doing those things, they become a habit and we don't even think about it. Like if I'm in the building with the lift, I don't use the lift. I just use the stairs. It's just a part of who I am. I don't even think about it twice. I just do it. I just use the stairs. And I hardly ever use a car or a bus or any public transport if I'm going maybe 1.5 to 2 miles away from my house. I just walk. Yeah, so moving naturally should be really part of it, of our everyday life. So that's one of the lessons of the blue zones. Lesson number 2 is finding a life purpose. And the research shows that finding a life purpose can add 7 years to our lives, which is
Yes.
really
And that's
wow.
amazing.
Which is
That is
wow.
amazing. Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
It's
think
it's
it's
it it's and I think, when we find a life purpose, whatever it is, it's important that we find the time to do it. Um, it's very easy to say I don't have a time, but if something that we love doing, we should really find the time for it, and put it in our diary, because it's very easy to ignore it because life takes over and then we ignore it. But as I said, I mean, finding life purpose can add 7 years to our lives. That's just to blow my mind when I read it. Um,
yes, and it doesn't have to be something grand. When people hear
yeah.
that, sometimes they think, oh, well, maybe I should be, thinking about doing some major thing to be great in the world, but how am I going to do that? How am I even going to start? And it doesn't have to be like that. It just needs to be something that feels right for you, that, feels like a calling to you, that will make you feel fulfilled when you do it.
Uh,
So,
one one
yep.
of the one of the examples I can use there is, for instance, with myself. As I mentioned earlier, I wrote quite a few books now, and I started to write when I was 16 years old. And I was doing quite lots of writing while I was a teenager, and then after a while, when I was about 20, I kind of stopped writing because I was busy with life, and then I was doing other things. But then after a few years, I kind of started to write again, and then life took over, and then I stopped writing, and I was doing something else, and then a few years later, I went back to it. So that's kind of how most of my life I've been living, kind of when it comes to writing. Uh, but obviously, my heart is still in it because I keep going back to writing. And it's not until a few years ago when I thought, right, I really want to start doing this and take it more seriously. And that's when I actually started to write every day, and that's when I started to publish books. And in my mind, that's kind of in a way my life purpose, and it makes me feel much happier, much more content, makes me feel more fulfilled. And now that's my job, that's my business, but I wish I found the time for it a long time ago. As I said, kind of through my most of my life, kind of I used to do writing, then I stopped, then I started, then I stopped, and I carry on like that. But I wished I took it more seriously years ago, and I wished I find the time for it years ago.
Well, there are a couple of good lessons here in what you just mentioned. One is that it's never too late.
Yes,
So, for
true.
anyone watching who's thinking, oh, I used to do this long ago, but oh, I must be so rusty when it comes to getting back into that, and I won't even try. No, it's not too late. It never is too late. And also pay attention to your gifts. You've been given gifts for a reason. And those are the things that will make you feel fulfilled when you're actually using them. So, just like you said, you realized that writing was a gift that you had from early. And it's so important to really value those gifts that we have been given. And they're there for us to use and to really find purpose out of.
That's right. So number three, the lesson number three is downshift. So in blue zones, people tend to do things that relax them, and some of them take afternoon nap.
Yes.
So what relaxes you, Christine?
Well, as long as I can kick back with a good book, I feel totally relaxed. Or if I kick back and chat with friends and family, and we have a good conversation and we're talking and laughing. Everybody who knows me knows I love to laugh. So, that just makes me feel totally relaxed. And that's very typical in Barbados. Like, people believe you do your work, you come home, and you relax with friends and family, and that's it. There's no I was,
Mm,
one of the few people, that there are some other managers like me who would bring home work until I stopped that.
mm,
So, typically people here, relaxing is a way of life. It's just like, there's
yeah,
a compartment and a time for working hard, and you give your best, and then that time comes to an end. And in the evening, that's time to just kick back and relax and totally forget about anything from earlier in the day. Just have fun with friends and family. And we tend to have families living pretty close together in some communities. So, I mean, that's tying into another element of the blue zones, but
yes,
that makes it really easy to be surrounded by people who are ready to relax, just like you.
yeah,
So
yes.
it's just second nature.
And last week we did talk about the stress, and
Yes.
yes, so this is relaxing. Finding the ways how you can relax. That's important to beat the stress in your life.
Yes. So true.
Yeah, yeah. So next thing on the blue zones list is plant-based diet. They tend to eat diet based on plants, and yeah, because in a Western diet, kind of it's full of, oh God, it's full of everything, but not plants.
It's
Yeah.
true. Some things
Yeah.
unrecognizable.
Yes, and part of my job is to teach my clients to read food labels, and yeah, I mean, when they discover what's in the food they eat,
Yeah.
they're absolutely shocked,
Yes.
and the same foods have like a 30, 40, 50 different ingredients,
Yes.
and you are thinking, but first of all, we don't even recognize half of that list. We don't
Yes.
know any of those names. They're foreign names of the ingredients, and then you are thinking, but there is nothing natural in it. And it's frightening to think what we put in our bodies.
Yes. That's so true. I tell clients, if you can't pronounce it, don't buy it.
Yeah.
If there are ingredients that you can't pronounce, then
Yeah.
just leave it on the shelf.
Yes, and yeah, I mean, I always encourage people when they go to the shop to actually read the food labels. It's really, really, really important because only then you can know what you're putting in your body. Actually, only then you will probably won't know what you're putting in your body because you don't have any idea what's in that food.
So
But it's
true.
it's really important to look at the food labels, and if it has a more, actually I read it. Is it? You probably read it too. I think if it's more than five ingredients, then don't
Yep.
buy it.
Yep.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
it.
And there is very very little food out there that has
Yes.
less than five ingredients.
It's true.
Yeah. Apart from natural food or whole food, what we call it. And and if you think about it, like if you think of potato, natural potato, you look at the potato and you think that's just one ingredient. That's it. It's one
Yes.
ingredient. But if you look at any kind of packaged food, hardly ever you're going to find anything that has less than 6, 7, 8, 10, or even 20 ingredients.
Yes. You know what brought that home to me? I saw a company advertising, our cheese contains 100% cheese. And I thought, so what's in the other cheeses?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
What's the other percent in the other cheeses? I'm
Yeah.
very worried.
Yes.
But I've grown up with a grow what you eat kind of mentality here in Barbados. So traditionally, almost everybody had some kind of garden. And that's part of what kept them active as well,
Yeah,
gardening.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but typically, you eat your vegetables that you grew, and here we have lots of fruit and tuber crops. So cassava, sweet potato, pumpkin, squash. Like those are the typical traditional things that we would eat. And before coconuts and coconut oil became a thing, long before that, we were using coconuts here in our daily
Yeah.
meals. And
Yeah.
and that's our snack. You drink coconut water, you eat the coconut jelly, the flesh. And traditionally, there was not much emphasis on eating snacks and going to the supermarket and buying a whole lot of things. I mean, people would go to the supermarket and maybe buy rice and a few basic things like that. But typically, most of what people ate, they grew or their neighbors grew and shared with them.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned about the story about the cheese. I remember years and years ago, there was an advert on the bus in London, and it said something like it was a Burger King advertising their burgers, comparing it to McDonald's burgers, and they said something like. In our burgers, we have 90% more meat than McDonald's.
So what's in the 10%? Or the other percent, whatever that might be, because it's 90% more, but that doesn't mean that 90% of the burger is actually meat. So what's really in there? It's really scary.
And I thought, right. So they probably don't have 100% meat in a Burger King. So maybe they have 95, let's say. So that means the McDonald's has like 5% meat. So
Yep.
what else is there? I've got no idea, and I don't even want to guess. I'm scared to
Yes.
guess.
Yes. Yeah, I just recommend make your own homemade burgers. They're so easy.
Yeah.
Just get some mixed beef and season it and you're done. I mean, it's so easy.
Right, let's carry on with the list of the blue zones. So the lesson number 5 is spend time with your family. And you mentioned it earlier in Barbados. You kind of tend to kind of spend time with your family and friends a lot.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just so, besides being relaxing, it's just so uplifting to know that you're always surrounded by people who love
Yeah.
you and people who care about you. So there's a lot of value in that emotionally that, we
Yeah.
should never take for granted.
That's very common for blue zones. Kind of, they tend to live next to elderly parents and take care of them, and they put their families first. While in a Western society, families live so far apart, and people don't have time for each other.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It's really sad because I see it changing in Barbados too, where people
Mm.
are starting to move into new housing developments. So those are further away from their families. Well, I live in a village setting, so literally I'm surrounded by family members and in-laws and
Yeah. Yeah.
people who knew me when I was growing up. And there's just something very, very comfortable and
Yeah.
soothing about that. You know that you don't have to worry about most things. You're not
Yeah.
alone, you
Yes.
know?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So number six, moderate calorie intake. So in blue zones, people tend to eat smaller portion sizes, and they stop eating when they're 80% full. While
Yes.
lots of people in this society where I live in, they tend to eat until they're 110% full. Yeah, which doesn't help their health or a weight or anything like that. So yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, our ancestors would have been eating what they could find.
Yes.
So they wouldn't have been going to the supermarket and just loaded up on a trolley full of random things that they think will taste good, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the fasting that we might do intermittently, they were doing it naturally. Sometimes you find food, sometimes you don't,
Yes, that's
and
right.
it was not a matter of just eating something because you saw it, you ate it because you were hungry. And when you're full, you stop eating.
Yes.
And it's so common now. Food is just so commonplace and easy to get. People choose to eat food for all sorts of reasons. We talked about emotional eating before.
Yeah.
That's not about food as fuel. That's literally eating to try to solve something that's going on emotionally. And so sometimes people don't even realize when they're full, because they're not thinking that way. They're just thinking about what need is food going to satisfy, even if it's not a need that food is really meant to satisfy.
And you see, it takes around 20 minutes for the brain to register that we've
Yes,
eaten. So if we eat quickly, our brain doesn't have a time to register it.
exactly.
And if we eat
Exactly.
very fast for 20 minutes, we are basically overeating.
Yes, yes. So
Yeah,
true. And people often don't take the time to even wait to see
yeah,
how they feel.
yeah,
They just see there's more food, so I'll keep eating, you know,
yeah.
and
And
then they
and
realize they're stuffed.
yeah. And also because we are very busy, we eat mindlessly.
Yes, yes,
I mean, I know with myself, I often eat while I'm driving. Because I'm busy rushing from one place to another, and then I eat something while I'm driving. And many times people eat while they're watching TV, or they just eat on a go, or they eat standing by the fridge, eating something quickly. And yeah, all those things are kind of are they're not healthy, first of all, and also yeah, we tend to overeat when we eat like that.
yes. And typically, as well, people, again, we talked about having a plan. So, very often, people don't have a plan when they're going to
Yeah.
eat.
Yes.
And so, I always recommend, if you're eating a meal and you've cooked, you take your small portion, something that will be satisfying, but not filling up the entire plate, heaped up. You take your portion out of the saucepan, you put it in a plate, you go sit and eat without anything. Because I practice eating mindfully without TV or anything. If I have anything around, it might be another person and I'm talking to the person, and then I'm eating slowly anyway. But it's better to have one set of food in a plate rather than laying out a whole bunch of dishes on your table and just taking from them constantly or as you feel like, mostly because you're just seeing the food. It's, I think, much better to portion out your food, take it and sit and eat with it, and that's your portion rather than having a whole bunch of food in front of you while you're eating and you're just constantly dipping into it. Or how people have a big bag of crisps,
Yeah.
and they're just
Yeah.
dipping it and they don't even
Yeah.
realize how much they're eating.
Yes,
So
it's true. It's true.
yeah, the portions are so important and we can control that pretty
Well,
easily.
we can definitely control it because I know with myself. I mean, I do like chocolates. I just like it, and yeah, I sometimes eat chocolates, and I know it's much cheaper to buy a big chocolate rather than a small one. But I always buy a small one because I know if I buy a big chocolate, I'm gonna have it all in one go. I won't be able to control myself. I know that I won't be able to control myself. So
Yes.
for me, I know the best thing is just to buy one small chocolate bar.
Yes.
And that's the way I'm controlling myself. And we are in control of what we are going to put in our mouth.
Of
We are
course.
always in control of it.
Yes.
Yeah. So the next thing on the list is moderate alcohol intake. So in blue zones, people drink regularly, but in moderation, and they drink with family and friends while they have their food. And yeah, that is very, very common. Like in Costa Rica or in Greek as well, they tend to eat tend to drink red wine a lot, but they drink red wine while they eat. When they stop eating, then they stop drinking.
Yes. And here, Sunday lunch is a big thing here in Barbados. So that's usually the biggest meal of the week. And I think that's
Mhm.
been traditionally the case because people have been working hard all week and then they tend to treat themselves on that one day to a bigger than usual meal, not in terms of portion, but just in terms of variety. And that's also the day that family will gather.
Yeah,
So either the family that's living in the house or people go to see family members, and there's usually some kind of Sunday gathering. So Sunday lunch is always the big communal kind of lunch.
right.
So I think that that helps when you're having that bigger meal because it does
Yeah,
slow you down, you know. So and very often people eat over a long period of time because they're talking and laughing and you eat a little and then you eat a little bit more. So it does give you time to see whether you're full. So that
yeah.
helps.
And that leads us to the next thing, which is belonging. Because
Yes.
as you mentioned, kind of when you are spending time with your families and having this, following this tradition on Sunday, you all have a meal together. It's kind of, I suppose it creates a feeling of belonging.
Yes, for sure. And
Yeah,
as human beings, we all want to belong, whether we think about it consciously or not. It's just the way we're built.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
it satisfies that need within us. So we don't try to satisfy it in some other way that might be less healthy.
Yeah, so belonging, yeah, as I said, that's another thing that's very common in blue zones, and they tend to belong to spiritual or faith-based service, and they tend to be part of the community, and as we mentioned, they have families around, and they feel very much they belong in that circle. And the last thing, last kind of lesson that we can learn from blue zones is surround yourself with supportive people. And that's again, we just mentioned a few times. That's being surrounded by family and friends, being surrounded by people from, I don't know, local church or yeah, just being surrounded by people you trust, feel safe with.
Yes, for sure. I mean, here people talk about belonging to their church family. That's
Yeah,
really important. And that's,
yeah.
been something that has been a normal part of life here in Barbados for a
Mm.
long time. And yeah, to know that you're supported versus feeling isolated or feeling like you're alone and trying to figure it all out on your own. I mean, the
Yeah.
difference is huge mentally, and our mental health affects our physical health. So, holistically, we need that.
And just thinking now about these 9 lessons, when you compare how people live over there with how people live in Western society, it's a big difference.
Yes,
It's
it
a big
is.
difference.
It
Yeah,
is.
when it comes to eating, drinking, moving your body, relaxing, being surrounded by family and friends, it's a big, big, big difference.
It is. And I see it starting to change. So I'm hoping that people will learn some lessons from what traditionally has worked and
Yeah,
start to return to that because there's no
yeah,
doubt it has led so many people in our society to live long and live healthy. I mean, there's so much proof of it. So I
yeah.
can say for sure that the blue zones and the work that's been done, the research that's been done is
Mm.
totally valid.
Yeah, if we all just to focus on at least kind of trying to implement just at least 2 or 3 things out of 9, and kind of really try to implement it and make it a part of our lives, I think it can make a huge, huge difference.
Yes, if we look at the 9 and we think, okay, well, I'm pretty satisfied in that area, but this
Yeah,
one could use some more work.
yeah,
That's where
that's
you
right.
put your focus to start.
That's right. Okay, this has been great, great
Yes, it
conversation
has.
today. Yes. So I'll see you next week. I'm not sure yet
Yes.
what we're gonna talk about. Do you have anything in mind?
Well, we were thinking about talking about exercise.
Oh,
So
we
that's
can
a
do that.
major topic for a lot of
We can do
people.
that. We can do that.
Yes. And we
That's
did talk
right.
about movement in the blue zone. So, let's talk
Yes.
about exercise and movement, not just
Excellent.
exercise.
I'll see you next
Yes.
week.
See you then.